again, Guyana, and welcome to the Public Interest. I am Malika Ramsey. Thank you very much for joining us again this week. This week, a Partnership for National Unity is going into, or I should say, examining the health sector, and with good reason, and specifically dealing with Ebola. Of course, there have been no reports of the presence of Ebola here, but you know, as they say, prevention is better than cure, and that is exactly what the leader of the People's National Congress Reform and leader of the opposition, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger, is preaching this week. Welcome, sir. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Malika.
All right, it's always good to have you. Sir, they've already developed a certain type of fear in their minds, even though we haven't had any cases of Ebola being reported here, but viewing international news media coming from various media, they are concerned that if it comes to Guyana, what really will happen? In your opinion, sir, are we prepared? Is Guyana's health sector prepared to deal with Ebola if we should have an outbreak here?
Well, that's a big question, Malika. Ebola has been around for 38 years. It's not a new disease. It's been present in some African countries, particularly Central Africa. In fact, Ebola is the name of a river. So the disease was first discovered in an area of Democratic Republic of Congo, close to that river. So it has been around, but now perhaps it has taken a very virulent form because of the concentration of populations in 2 or 3 states in West Africa. So it's still isolated. But I would say no. Guyana has only become conscious of the disease, as far as the public is concerned, this year, 2014. And although they've been broadcast by the president and there have been press statements by the Minister of Health and the Chief Medical Officer, I don't think I would feel that we are prepared.
Okay. I'm happy that you talked about broadcasts and statements coming from the Chief Medical Officer and the Health Ministry and even the President. Are those enough to quell the fears of our people? Is it enough?
No, definitely not. I think that there needs to be, one, if there's a recognition that there is a threat, there's a public health threat, there needs to be a public information campaign. And I haven't seen it happening. I haven't seen the public being sensitized, particularly in the villages and in the wider community. I'm just talking about people who read the daily newspapers. I haven't seen that sort of campaign at all.
Sir, someone on the social media, via the social media in the past week said that, look, Guyana has said, the Minister of Health has said that we've now closed our borders, or this better statement would be protecting our borders, in that people coming from those countries may not be able to enter. Somebody is saying now via social network that this may just be a bluff, just to be a part of what other Caribbean countries have claimed that they're doing. Do you find that we're actually serious?
It's eyewash. Guyana has never been able to close its borders. I mean, the very fact that we have backtracking suggests that people can gain access to this country without going through the normal, immigration channels, and people leave the country. So backtracking is really a hole in the system. And although you may close certain points of entry, like Timeri International Airport, Ogle International Airport, and the border crossing with Suriname, Venezuela, and Brazil, that's not enough, because there is illegal movement, and I haven't seen any indication that Guyana has tried to seal its borders in a more holistic way because of the prevalence of illegal movement to and fro.
Brigadier, government, and by extension, of course, because of this topic, the Ministry of Health may accuse you of not recognizing or giving credit where credit is due, because they may bring up the issue that, look, we have also launched this campaign and we have committed to training medical staff to deal with cases of Ebola. Your thoughts?
Well, the action by the government is necessary, but it's not sufficient. That's the point I'm making. It is late, and it is slow, and it is insufficient. What we need is a national plan. I have not been privy to the national plan. I did speak with the president, and he told me that he's calling on my support. I said, of course, it's a national emergency, but I haven't been privy to a national plan, and a Partnership for National Unity has not been asked to provide members who can execute a national plan. So it is still very much talk. and I would like to see much more. We need to acquire equipment. We need to produce diagnostic materials, and a plan is going to be elaborate. It's a national plan. This is not something to deal with a flow break. This is a serious matter because thousands of persons have already died. It's a fatal disease, a lethal disease.
If I can step back a bit and come back to what we were discussing a minute or so ago, our borders. When we talk security, you always complain that more needs to be done to secure our borders in terms of crime, preventing crime in certain areas. Now, in terms of securing the border from Ebola, do we have the money to do it and carrying out this national plan that you're talking about?
Well, if we had done it for public security purposes, to prevent contraband, to prevent illegal migration, it would have been in place. And we could have applied it to public health now. So public security could have been related to public health, but the infrastructure is not in place. So if we had legitimate official border crossings, people could have been directed to those crossings. But right now the border is wide open. The Brazilian border is over 1,000 kilometers. There's no way we can watch it. We don't have surveillance aircraft. And this occurred in the past when we had problems with foot and mouth disease, you know. I remember that was rigorous because cattle would just go to and fro. But I don't see the sort of preparation for Ebola that I even saw years ago for the mouth disease for cattle.
Now, Parliament, the recess for Parliament, the National Assembly has ended. Of course, we're preparing to return to the House. Everybody's talking about this pending no confidence motion. But were government to come to Parliament whenever the Parliament meets and ask for monies, for a special sit-in, ask for monies to address this issue of Ebola and prepare Guyana for it, would a Partnership for National Unity grant?
Naturally. Once there is a plan and once we are assured that the money will be properly spent, we are going to support the measures. One, you need to train personnel. Two, you need to provide the infrastructure, because if somebody comes into the country and is to be quarantined, that person has to go to an area which is secure and with proper personnel. But if you look at the equipment that the technicians need, they need to be covered from head to foot. They need headgear, they need goggles, they need smocks, or they need gloves, they need footwear, and after that's been contaminated, it has to be destroyed, and a new set of equipment issued to the healthcare personnel. In addition to that, the disposal of dead bodies, and of course, a dead body which has been infected is likely to be highly contagious. I don't see that we've really prepared for that as yet.
But Brigadier, I'm happy that
you just answering your question.
Yes.
That's going to require a lot of money. I haven't seen a financial budget for that type of response.
But we're going to come back to the money indeed, and you touched on it, the burying of the victims. We have a situation here by every now and again, we have a problem with what happens at Le Repentir Cemetery. Tombs are broken into, tombs are open, these sort of things. If there is an outbreak here, how can we handle the dead bodies, the victims?
Well, this is the point I'm making. We need to see a holistic national plan, because these things can't be left to chance. You can't allow the people in quarantine to do whatever they feel like doing. You can't allow the people in Maruka to do. There has to be a national plan, because people have to be trained. This is a highly contagious disease. And unless there is a national plan, we are going to see loopholes appearing in different areas of the country. So I would like to see, you mentioned the National Assembly, I'd like to see when we go back to the National Assembly, that the Minister of Health puts a national plan. The President has called for collaboration. I've committed APNU to collaborate, but collaborate on what? It's not a talk show, it is an operational plan, and I haven't seen that operational plan.
If by the time we do go back to the National Assembly, no concrete plan comes from government, would APNU be in a position, can you move table a motion to have this Ebola matter addressed?
It is basically a governmental matter. We can move a motion, but the government has shown scant regard for our motions in the past. I would say the government needs to get its act together, because the sort of money we're talking about could run into hundreds of millions. And there's no way the opposition could provide that sort of money. Trained personnel from the Ministry of Health. You need elements from the Civil Defense Commission. You need people at the airports. it's a big operation, and the opposition cannot pretend to have the expertise to mount such an operation. We will collaborate, and we can pass the motion for what it's worth, but the government has to start moving a lot more quickly than it's moving at present.
Some have argued that Guyana is really, really far away and there's no need to press the panic button, and we're just mounting out of a molehill because it may not get here. Your thoughts?
We're living in a globalized world. I mean, Ebola can come into this country within the next hour, literally, if we're not prepared. People jump on aircraft. It is not as though West Africa is all a zone of contamination, but the disease has already popped up in Spain. It's already popped up in United States, and these are developed countries, first world countries with good resources. We can have Ebola here in an hour. So I would say, without any feeling of panic or hysteria, I would say we need to start improving or speeding up our preparation from now.
Do we need, or I should say, should we accept international assistance even before?
Definitely. Even before you finish, I would say yes. We have to get international assistance. There's no way Guyana could cope with even a chikungunya outbreak, much less an Ebola outbreak. A chikungunya causes a lot of pain and discomfort, and we've got thousands of cases. We haven't seen the end of chikungunya as yet. We definitely need help if Ebola comes here, because as I said, the infrastructure, new rooms may have to be constructed at areas where people come by river, by water, or by land, by air, to keep them in isolation. If a person is detected having Ebola, you can't bring that person to Georgetown Public Hospital. That person has to be kept in a zone, maybe at Temeri or some other place, where he or she could be returned or treated. That person has to be fed. That person has to have the normal facilities for human toilets and that type of thing, sleeping area. So I'm trying to create the impression that much more needs to be done at present. That person has to be kept alive. Medical personnel have to be made available while he or she is in quarantine.
Would now be too soon to reach out to first world countries to ask for assistance in the event? Would we even get the assistance?
Now is late. Far from being too soon, now is late. Guyana does not have the infrastructure that is required to cope with the challenge of Ebola at present. Guyana needs first world assistance right now.
Okay, sir. And finally, before we wrap up, what do you want the public to understand and government to understand as you call for them to address, even though we don't have any cases here, to address the issue and the concern of Ebola?
I want the public to be aware of the fact that there's a real public health threat. I'd like the government to provide much more information to the people. I'd like to see a national plan which will involve information, infrastructure, and training of personnel and the acquisition of equipment, so that we can assure the population that they are going to be protected from this lethal disease. I want to see all of these things, and I want to see it very soon.
Thank you very much, Brigadier. Leader of the People's National Congress Reform and Leader of the Opposition, Brigadier the Honorable David Granger. This has been another edition of The Public Interest. We were discussing a partnership for national unity's concern regarding the Ebola virus, which most of our people are now concerned with. I'm Malika Ramsey. Thanks for joining us, and do join us again next time.